I had spent my whole life swearing I would never fall for her. Vivian Davenport was everything I despised, spoiled, arrogant, and entirely too beautiful for her own good. We had been enemies since childhood, locked in an unspoken rivalry that neither of us ever dared to break. And yet, here I was, standing in the grand ballroom of the Davenport estate, wearing a wedding dress, with a gold band being slipped onto my finger. I barely heard the officiant declare us wives, my pulse roaring in my ears. Vivian's fingers lingered on mine for a moment too long, and when I looked up, she was smirking. That infuriating, knowing smirk that had always made me want to both slap her and no. I wouldn't even entertain the thought. As the applause filled the room, Vivian leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. Try not to look so miserable, sweetheart. We wouldn't want our guests to think you're unhappy, would we? I clenched my jaw and forced a smile. The Davenports and the Lennoxes, our families, had orchestrated this marriage for business reasons, tying our fortunes together in a way that neither of us had the power to refuse. We were both pawns in a game played by our parents, and yet, Vivian looked as if she was enjoying every second of it. The reception was a blur of champagne toasts and polite conversation. I played my part, smiling at the right moments, nodding as people congratulated us. But the weight of the ring on my finger felt suffocating. When we were finally allowed to slip away, Vivian led me through the grand halls of her family's mansion. Our mansion now, I supposed. The thought made my stomach twist. When we reached our bedroom, she closed the door behind us and turned to face me, arms crossed. "Well, Mrs. Davenport," she drawled, her blue eyes gleaming with amusement. "Shall we consummate our marriage, or will you be sleeping on the couch?" I scoffed, yanking the pins from my hair with more force than necessary. "I'd rather sleep in the garden." Vivian laughed. "Oh, darling. You act as if sharing a bed with me would be such a hardship." I turned to her, narrowing my eyes. "We may be married on paper, but that doesn't mean anything else has to change." She took a slow step forward, her expression shifting into something more serious. "Doesn't it?" Her voice was softer now, almost thoughtful. "Because from where I'm standing, things already feel very different." I hated that I knew exactly what she meant. The space between us was charged, the air thick with something that had never been there before, or maybe it had, and I had just spent years ignoring it. Vivian was still the same infuriating woman she had always been, but now she was my wife. Now there was no escaping her. She reached for my hand again, her fingers grazing mine, and I felt the jolt of it all the way down my spine. "Good night, Thea," she murmured, and then she turned, walking away as if she hadn't just sent my entire world tilting on its axis. I stood there, my heart hammering, knowing one thing for certain: I was already losing the battle I had sworn to fight. I woke up to the scent of jasmine and the distant hum of the ocean waves beyond the estate's private cliffs. For a moment, I forgot where I was, the silk sheets cool against my skin, the morning light spilling through sheer curtains. And then I remembered. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. I was in Vivian Davenport's home. My prison. Rolling onto my back, I stared at the ceiling, steeling myself for the day ahead. I had barely seen Vivian since our wedding night. She had left me alone in the massive bedroom, and I had been grateful for it. But I knew that today, avoidance wouldn't be an option. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Before I could answer, the door creaked open, and Vivian stepped inside, already dressed in a crisp white blouse and tailored navy slacks. She looked effortlessly elegant as always, and entirely too smug for someone who had just upended my entire life. "Good morning, wife," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "Did you sleep well?" I pushed myself up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. "Like a dream," I deadpanned. "A nightmare, specifically." Vivian chuckled, stepping further into the room. "Charming as ever, Thea. We have a brunch to attend, hosted by my parents. They expect us to be there as a united front." I groaned, throwing the covers off. Of course they do. Vivian watched me with that infuriating amusement as I swung my legs over the edge of the bed. You might want to wear something less hostile, she suggested. Wouldn't want the society pages to start rumors about marital discord so soon, would we? I shot her a glare before stalking past her into the ensuite bathroom. Give me 20 minutes. True to my word, I emerged 20 minutes later, dressed in a sleek black dress that clung to me in all the right places. Vivian raised an eyebrow as she took me in, but said nothing. Instead, she offered her arm. Shall we? I hesitated, but then, with a sigh, I slipped my hand into the crook of her elbow. Her warmth seeped into my skin, and I hated how natural it felt. As we descended the grand staircase together, I could feel the eyes of the staff on us, watching, whispering. To them, we were the perfect couple, two powerful women bound by marriage, by duty. But beneath the surface, tension coiled like a snake between us, waiting to strike. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to fight it or let it consume me. The brunch was an extravagant affair, as expected of the Davenports. Their estate was practically glowing under the late morning sun, the garden filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the subtle hum of whispered gossip. It wasn't just a family gathering. It was a spectacle, a display of wealth and power carefully orchestrated for their guests. I walked beside Vivian, my hand resting lightly on her arm. We had played this game 1,000 times before, pretending to tolerate each other at social events, but now, with the weight of marriage binding us, every glance and touch felt different. More dangerous. You look tense, darling, Vivian murmured under her breath as we stepped onto the terrace. I shot her a warning look. Maybe because I'm being paraded around like a prize show dog. Vivian smirked, her grip tightening just slightly on my waist as she leaned in. Oh, but you play the part so well. Before I could fire back, a voice cut through the noise. The newlyweds. I turned to see Vivian's mother approaching, dressed in an elegant cream-colored dress, her expression perfectly poised. Behind her, my own parents followed, both looking equally pleased with themselves. How wonderful it is to see you both, Mrs. Davenport said smoothly, her sharp eyes flicking between us, assessing. You make such a stunning couple. I forced a polite smile. Thank you. Vivian, ever the charmer, took my hand in hers and lifted it to her lips, pressing a soft, deliberate kiss to my knuckles. We do, don't we? She said, her voice rich with amusement. I swallowed hard, my skin burning where her lips had touched. She was playing with me, pushing me, and I hated that it was working. Our mothers beamed, satisfied, and the conversation quickly shifted to business, deals, investments, alliances. I barely listened, too aware of Vivian's fingers tracing idle circles on my wrist, a casual intimacy that sent my heart into a maddening rhythm. Then, just as I thought I might be able to breathe, a familiar voice rang out. Thea? Is that really you? I stiffened, my stomach dropping. I turned slowly, my breath catching when I saw her, Elena Whitmore, my first love.
No.
Not just my first love. My first heartbreak. She stood there, looking just as breathtaking as I remembered, long. Auburn waves cascading over her shoulders, those deep brown eyes studying me with something unreadable. It had been years since we'd last spoken, since she had walked away and left me with nothing but a hollow ache in my chest. Elena, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Vivian's grip on my hand tightened ever so slightly. I didn't know you'd be here, Elena said, taking a step closer, her gaze flickering between me and Vivian.
Married. Wow.
I guess congratulations are in order. Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. Regret? Jealousy? Vivian, sensing the shift in the air, turned to her with a smile that was all teeth. Yes, my wife and I are very happy, thank you. Her wife. The words sent a strange shiver down my spine. Elena smiled politely, but I could see it in her eyes. Questions, unspoken thoughts, a flicker of something unresolved. I should go, she said after a moment, offering me one last look before turning away. As soon as she was gone, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Vivian's voice was quiet but firm. Do I need to be worried about her? I turned to her, meeting those piercing blue eyes. No, I said. And yet, as I watched Elena disappear into the crowd, I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince, Vivian or myself. The brunch had been exhausting. Smiling, nodding, pretending that my life wasn't being paraded around like some extravagant social event. But what exhausted me most was her, Vivian, with her smug little smirks and the way her fingers lingered on my skin, knowing exactly how to set my nerves on fire. And then there was Elena, the past I had buried, the love I had lost. The moment I had seen her, it had cracked something inside me, something I wasn't ready to face. Now, back in the estate, I finally had a moment to breathe. Or so I thought. I had just slipped out of my dress, standing in nothing but my silk slip, when I heard the door to our shared bedroom open. Vivian leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her sharp blue eyes taking me in. You looked defected, she said, her voice casual, but her gaze anything but. I exhaled, turning away to grab a robe. By what? Elena. I froze for just a second before pulling the robe tightly around me. I don't know what you're talking about. Vivian stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Don't you? I turned to face her, trying to keep my expression neutral. Why do you care? She smirked, taking slow, deliberate steps toward me. Because you're my wife, Thea. And I don't like seeing my wife looking at someone else like that. I let out a hollow laugh. This marriage isn't real, Vivian. Don't start acting like the jealous type now. Her smirk faltered for just a moment, and then she was in front of me. Too close, her scent wrapping around me like a trap. Then why are you so defensive? My breath hitched. She was playing with me again, pushing just to see if I'd break. I lifted my chin. I'm not. Vivian reached out, her fingers brushing against my jaw, tilting my face toward hers. Liar, she whispered. Something in the air shifted. The playful edge in her voice softened, replaced by something else. Something heavier. I should have pulled away. I should have laughed it off. Instead, I found myself leaning in, her eyes flickered down to my lips, and for a second, just a second, I thought she might kiss me. But then she stepped back, her smirk returning like a mask. You should get some rest, she said lightly, as if the moment had never happened. And then she was gone, leaving me standing there, heart racing, hands clenched at my sides. I had spent my whole life swearing I would never fall for her. And yet, piece by piece, I could feel myself slipping. I avoided Vivian for the rest of the day. After what had happened in our bedroom, the way she had looked at me, the way I had leaned in like some foolish girl caught in a moment, I needed space. Distance.
Control.
But, of course, Vivian never made things easy. By the time dinner rolled around, I found myself at the long dining table of the Davenport estate, across from my so-called wife. The grand chandelier above us cast a soft glow over the polished mahogany, and the staff moved like silent shadows, serving an elaborate meal neither of us seemed particularly interested in eating. Vivian sipped her wine slowly, her gaze flicking up to me every so often. I pretended not to notice, keeping my focus on my plate. You've been quiet, she finally said, swirling the red liquid in her glass. I cut a piece of my steak, not looking up. I didn't realize silence was a crime in this house. She chuckled. Not a crime. Just unusual. Normally, you're too busy making it clear how much you loathe me. I set my fork down, exhaling. Maybe I'm tired. Vivian leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. Or maybe you're thinking about something or someone else. I met her gaze then, sharp and unwavering. You really are jealous, aren't you? She tilted her head, considering. Not jealous. Just curious. I scoffed. You don't get to be curious, Vivian. You don't get to act like this is real. Her smirk faltered just slightly. You keep saying that, but tell me, Thea, what about earlier? That moment in our bedroom? My stomach clenched. I hated that she brought it up. Hated that I had no real defense. That was nothing, I said flatly. Vivian studied me for a long moment, then nodded, leaning back in her chair. If you say so. The silence that followed was suffocating. I hated this. I hated her. And yet, when dinner ended and I retreated to our bedroom, I found myself restless, my mind replaying every second of that almost moment between us. When the door opened and Vivian stepped inside, dressed in nothing but a silk robe, I knew I was in trouble. She walked past me, completely unfazed, moving to the vanity to remove her earrings. The candlelight flickered against her skin, highlighting every smooth line, every careless movement. I swallowed hard. Do you have to do that here? She glanced at me in the mirror, raising a brow. Do what? Parade around like that. Vivian turned then, walking toward me with slow, deliberate steps. Predatory. Dangerous. Are you uncomfortable, Thea? She asked, her voice soft, teasing. I clenched my jaw. You know exactly what you're doing. She stopped just in front of me, reaching out as if to brush a stray strand of hair from my face. I should have stepped back, but I didn't. I'm just existing, she murmured. If that bothers you, maybe the problem isn't me. I couldn't breathe. Vivian held my gaze for another moment before pulling away, walking toward the bed. She slipped beneath the covers with the same effortless confidence she did everything with. Good night, wife, she said smoothly, turning off the lamp beside her. I stood there for a long time, my pulse erratic, my skin burning. I should have hated her. So why did I want her so damn much? I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt her presence beside me. The steady rise and fall of her breath, the warmth of her body just inches away. The bed was too big, and yet, she still felt too close. By the time morning arrived, I was exhausted, but I refused to let it show. I got up before Vivian, taking extra time in the ensuite bathroom to compose myself. Control, Thea. You need control. When I finally stepped out, she was already awake, propped up against the pillows, watching me with that lazy, unreadable expression. Morning, she murmured, stretching like a cat. The silk of her robe slipped just enough to reveal smooth skin, the sharp cut of her collarbone. I ignored the way my stomach tightened. We have a meeting with our families today, I reminded her, as if that was the most important thing on my mind. Vivian smirked. Always so responsible. She threw off the covers, standing with slow, deliberate movements. I'll be ready in 20 minutes. Unless you'd like to join me in the shower? I almost choked. She laughed at my reaction, disappearing into the bathroom before I could respond. I let out a slow, frustrated breath. This was a game to her, and I was dangerously close to losing. The meeting with our families was unbearable. Our parents sat in the grand study, discussing business deals and the merging of assets as if Vivian and I weren't even there. I barely spoke, letting them argue over contracts and investments. Vivian, on the other hand, looked effortlessly composed, chiming in with the occasional witty remark that made her father chuckle. Then, somewhere in the middle of the conversation, I felt it, her hand, resting lightly on my thigh beneath the table. I froze. Her fingers traced slow, lazy circles through the fabric of my dress, completely hidden from view. My pulse roared in my ears. I turned my head, eyes narrowing. What the hell are you doing? Vivian didn't even look at me. She kept her gaze on the conversation, a picture of pure innocence, as if she wasn't driving me insane. I should have shoved her hand away, but I didn't. I hated her. I hated this. And yet I couldn't move. My body betrayed me. When the meeting finally ended, I stormed out before she could say anything. But she caught up to me in the hallway, grabbing my wrist, spinning me around. Something wrong, darling? She asked, voice dripping with amusement. I snapped. I shoved her back against the wall, my breathing ragged. Stop playing with me, Vivian. She looked up at me, her smirk fading just slightly. Something shifted in her expression. What if I'm not playing? Silence. The air crackled between us. My hands were still on her arms, her body pinned beneath mine. I could feel the heat radiating from her skin, her breath brushing against my lips. I should have stepped away, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned in, just enough for our noses to brush, just enough to make it impossible to ignore the way my heart was pounding. Her lips parted. And then footsteps. I jerked back as a servant rounded the corner, barely glancing at us before continuing down the hall. Vivian let out a soft laugh, her eyes dark, unreadable. That's twice now, Thea. I swallowed hard. Twice what? She pushed off the wall, stepping past me, her lips brushing my ear as she whispered, "That you almost kissed me." And then she was gone. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady myself. I was in so much trouble. I avoided Vivian for the rest of the day. I needed space.
Desperately.
But space was a luxury I no longer had. By the time evening arrived, I found myself standing outside the estate's private lounge, where a dinner party was in full swing. Another social event, another night of pretending. Vivian had been by my side the entire evening, playing the perfect wife in front of our guests. Her hand rested on my lower back, her laughter effortless, her smile sharp and knowing. I, on the other hand, felt like I was on the verge of breaking. Especially because Elena was here. I had spotted her across the room an hour ago, and ever since, I could feel her watching me. Every glance, every stolen look, it was like a ghost from my past refusing to let me go. And Vivian noticed. She always did. We were standing near the bar when she leaned in, her voice low against my ear. "She hasn't stopped staring at you." I swallowed hard, keeping my expression neutral.
Who?
Vivian let out a soft chuckle. "Don't insult me, Thea." She tilted her head slightly, her fingers brushing against my wrist. A warning. A challenge. "Do you still love her?" I turned to face her fully, meeting her gaze. "Why do you care?" Her smirk didn't falter, but something in her eyes flickered, something dark, unreadable. "I don't," she said smoothly. "I just think it's fascinating. The way you look at her." "I don't look at her in any way." Vivian hummed, her fingers tracing slow circles against the fabric of my dress. "Territorial. Liar." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, Elena was there. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carefully composed, polite. "Thea, could I steal you for a moment?" Vivian's grip on my wrist tightened almost imperceptibly. A silent message. "Don't go." I ignored it. "Of course," I said, stepping away. I could feel Vivian's gaze burning into my back as I followed Elena to a quieter corner of the lounge. The moment we were alone, she exhaled, shaking her head. "God, I can't believe this." I frowned. "Believe what?" She gestured between us.
You.
"Married to her." A lump formed in my throat. "It's complicated." Elena let out a soft laugh, bitter and disbelieving. "Is it?" She studied me for a long moment, then sighed. "Are you happy, Thea?" I should have said yes. It would have been the easy answer, the expected answer. But the words wouldn't come. Elena took a slow step closer, reaching out as if to touch me, but hesitated. "Because if you're not, you know you don't have to stay." My stomach twisted. "Elena, she stopped herself, shaking her head. "I still think about you."
No.
I couldn't do this. I took a step back. I should go. Before she could say anything else, I turned, only to find Vivian standing a few feet away, watching us. Her expression was unreadable, but her posture was tense. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. Then, without a word, I walked back to her. Vivian didn't say anything at first. She just watched me, studied me. Then, after a long pause, she murmured, "You made the right choice." I should have been angry at her arrogance. I should have snapped at her for acting like she owned me. Instead, all I could focus on was the way her hand found mine, her fingers slipping between mine so easily, so naturally. And the worst part? I didn't pull away. I didn't speak to Vivian for the rest of the night. Not because I was angry, not because I was hurt, but because I didn't know what the hell I was feeling anymore. Elena's words still echoed in my mind. "If you're not happy, you don't have to stay." And then there was Vivian. Vivian, who had seen everything. Vivian, who had reached for my hand, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. And I had let her. I barely remembered how we got back to the estate. The night blurred together. a mess of emotions I refused to untangle. But when we stepped into our shared bedroom, the silence between us was deafening. Vivian was the first to break it. "You didn't kiss her." I turned, startled. She was already undressing, slipping out of her evening gown with ease, her movements slow, methodical. I crossed my arms, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Of course I didn't." Vivian hummed, stepping closer. "But you thought about it." I clenched my jaw. "Why do you care?" She stopped a breath away, her perfume wrapping around me like a drug. "Because you're mine, Thea." The air between us crackled. I should have laughed at her audacity. I should have pushed her away. But I was so damn tired of pretending. So instead, I whispered, "Then prove it." Vivian's eyes darkened. Challenge accepted. And then she kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't hesitant. It was fire and frustration, heat and hunger, years of tension snapping all at once. Her hands gripped my waist, pulling me against her, and I let her. I wanted to hate it. I wanted to hate her. But the moment her lips moved against mine, the moment her fingers tangled in my hair, I was gone. I pushed her back, hard, until she hit the edge of the bed. She smirked against my mouth, breathless, amused. "Oh, so you do want me?" "Shut up," I muttered, kissing her again. Vivian laughed against my lips, but she didn't argue. Instead, she pulled me down with her, flipping us so that she was on top, pinning me beneath her. "You drive me insane," I whispered, my fingers digging into her back. Vivian grinned, her lips brushing my jaw, my neck.
Good.
I was in so much trouble. But for the first time since this marriage began, I didn't care. The morning after should have been awkward. It should have been filled with regret, with tension, with the weight of what we had done. But when I woke up, tangled in silk sheets and her, all I felt was warmth. Vivian was still asleep, her arm draped lazily over my waist, her breath soft against my shoulder. The woman who had been nothing but sharp edges and calculated smirks was now peaceful. And that terrified me more than anything. I slowly tried to pull away, but the moment I moved, her grip tightened. Running away already. Her voice was low, husky from sleep. I swallowed, refusing to meet her gaze. "I need to get dressed," Vivian hummed, her fingers tracing absent patterns on my hip. "And here I thought you might stay in bed with me a little longer." I pushed her hand away, sitting up. "We need to talk." She sighed dramatically, rolling onto her back. "You always ruin the fun, Thea." I ignored her teasing and stood, grabbing the robe from the chair. "This us last night. It doesn't change anything." Vivian propped herself up on her elbows, watching me with infuriating amusement. "Oh, sweetheart," she purred. "It changes everything." I turned, glaring at her. "This marriage is still an arrangement." She shrugged, unconcerned. "And yet, you were in my bed last night." My face burned. "That was a mistake." Vivian tilted her head, eyes gleaming.
Funny.
"Didn't feel like one when you were moaning my name." I almost threw a pillow at her. "You're impossible." She grinned. "And yet, you're still here." I opened my mouth to argue, but a knock at the door cut through the tension. We both stiffened. Vivian shot me a look before casually calling out, "Come in." The door creaked open, and to my absolute horror, Elena stood there. Her eyes flickered between us, between me, wrapped in a robe, and Vivian, still in bed, the sheets barely covering her. I saw the exact moment she understood. "Elena," I breathed, stepping forward. But she took a step back, her expression carefully neutral. I needed to talk to you. But I see I'm interrupting." I felt sick. Vivian, of course, looked completely unbothered. In fact, she was smirking. "Oh, you're not interrupting," she said sweetly, stretching like a satisfied cat. "Thea and I were just discussing how much last night meant to us." I shot her a sharp look. "What the hell are you doing?" Elena's jaw clenched.
Right. Well.
"I'll leave you to it then." She turned on her heel and walked away. I should have let her go. But instead, I grabbed my dress and bolted after her. "Elena, wait." I called, catching up to her in the hallway. She stopped, but didn't turn around. Don't. I exhaled. It's not what you think. She let out a short, humorless laugh. It's exactly what I think, Thea. She finally turned to face me, her brown eyes filled with something unreadable. Was any of it real? Or were you just playing with me? Guilt slammed into my chest. I wasn't, she shook her head. I really hoped you might still. She cut herself off, taking a breath. Never mind. Elena, my voice was barely a whisper. She stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. I hope she's worth it. And then she walked away. This time, I didn't stop her. I stood there, my heart pounding, my head spinning. I had loved Elena once. But when I turned back toward my bedroom, where Vivian was waiting, smug, infuriating, intoxicating Vivian, I realized something. She was the one I couldn't walk away from. I didn't go after Elena. Maybe I should have. Maybe there was a time when I would have. But that time had passed. Instead, I found myself walking back to the room where she was. Vivian was exactly where I left her, still lounging in bed, her expression unreadable as I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The tension in the air was thick, crackling between us like a brewing storm. She watched me for a long moment, then sighed. You let her go. I crossed my arms.
You wanted me to.
Her lips curled into something almost smug. Did I? I exhaled sharply, frustration rising. Vivian, I don't have time for your games. She tilted her head, studying me. Who said this was a game? My heart stuttered. I took a step forward. You did. From the moment we got married, from the moment you started toying with me. Vivian's smirk faltered. Just slightly. But I caught it. I pressed on. You pushed me, teased me, made me question every damn thing I thought I knew. Because I wanted you, she said, voice sharp, honest. I froze. The room was suddenly too quiet. Vivian sat up, her gaze locked onto mine. I wanted you before this marriage. I wanted you before I even knew what to do with it. She exhaled, shaking her head. And yes, I played with you because I didn't think you'd ever take me seriously. I swallowed hard. And now? She stood then, closing the distance between us. Now, she murmured, reaching for my hand, fingers brushing over my knuckles. I need to know if you're done fighting this. I looked at her, really looked at her. Vivian, who had driven me insane for years. Vivian, who had always known how to get under my skin. Vivian, who had kissed me like she meant it, who had held me like she wasn't afraid of wanting me.
And I realized something terrifying.
I had never been fighting her.
I had been fighting myself.
So, I made a choice. I grabbed the front of her robe, pulling her in hard, kissing her with everything I had left. Vivian melted into me, her hands gripping my waist, her breath stolen just as much as mine. When we finally pulled back, her forehead rested against mine, her smile breathless, victorious. So, she murmured, are you saying you're in love with me? I rolled my eyes, but I was smiling. You're unbearable. Vivian laughed, pressing another kiss to my lips. And yet, you married me. I sighed, my fingers tightening around her. Yeah, I whispered. I did. And for the first time since this marriage began, I knew I wasn't going anywhere.